You're doing good. I want you to just take a moment and think. I read something recently. It was basically a kind of a description of Calvin's. Uh, there were 6 aspects of a spiritual life that he had laid out. One of them was the way that we relate to the world that we live in. And he said that the world was not to be worshipped, but it was to be appreciated for its beauty and its utility. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting, that we can appreciate the things that God has created. They do speak of Him in Romans 1 and verse 18 and on, or Psalm 19 and verse 1 through 4. The heavens declare the glory of God. We understand that all of His works speak praise to Him. In other words, there's value in everything that He has done. It's all, as He said in Genesis chapter 1, it's all good. But beauty is something that we can do as believers. We can appreciate all the things that God has created. I think this is something we can teach to our children and grandchildren, to appreciate the things that we have in our life, that whether they're man-made, they're made from the materials that God provided. What do you have that you haven't received? You've been freely given, in Matthew 10:8. So for each one of us, there is this sense where we're appreciative of all the things, the beauty, the splendor that God's put around us, but we don't worship it. One of the aspects that was brought out, and which really kind of stimulated me, was the fact that if a person begins to think that they control nature, in other words, we become the God of nature, we are going to control, then inevitably they turn away from God. God gave us the responsibility in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 28 of stewarding nature, in other words, taking care of the things that He has provided, but He did not give us the responsibility of controlling it. We're actually to depend upon Him for the control. We're just to be good stewards. The very word to tend means to serve there in the Hebrew. It's the same word. Just serve God. We're here. And I want you to think about your life and about what we can teach our children and our grandchildren. We're here to take care of the things that God has placed in our lives and to appreciate them. That's the beauty of nature, and also all that God has given to us. We're also here to be good stewards of that. That's the utility aspect, where we actually learn how to use it in a way that glorifies God. But let me just say, we will never glorify God in terms of our service unless we first appreciate or are thankful for what He has provided for us. This is something that is incredibly lacking in our culture today, and many times in our lives as believers. We think of what we don't have rather than all the things that God, all the blessings. What does it say there in Psalm 103? Forget not all of His benefits. It goes through a whole list. He heals all your diseases. And He's that God who's redeemed us. We have so much to be thankful for. And you can say, well, I have problems. We'll talk about that next devotion. We spoke on this Sunday. But I think it's something that bears reiteration. Those problems are opportunities for us to steward the presence of God, to be a steward over the circumstance that He's given us in this world of chaos and controversy, to be a steward, to administrate over all these circumstances in a way that glorifies Him. How can we teach this to those that are in our life, that are the people that are most important to us? How can we teach this to them? I think it starts off first and foremost by being appreciative, giving thanks to God. recognizing that all that we have, all that we see, all the aspects of our life, by the way, as we said Sunday, both good and bad, they all have a purpose, that God can turn a curse into a blessing, that someone can mean something for evil and it turns out that God used it for good in Genesis 50 and verse 20. Only God can do that. The devil thinks he's won. He's such a fool. The worst he can do is throw us a curveball. God never strikes out. Our Lord hit the eternal home run on the cross. He takes our weakness, he turns it into strength. He walks through the valley of all of our circumstance. We can appreciate the beauty, even in the midst of adversity, of our God and all that he can do for us. And you know what? We can be a good steward over our time, our effort, as it says there in Ephesians 5 and verse 14 and on, actually. But we're redeeming the time. It also tells you literally, that we're to purchase the time. Like the days are evil. We're to be on top of it, being a good steward of the time that we have. Isn't that what it says in Psalm 90 and verse 12? Teach us to number our days. Why? So that we can, in the Hebrew, it could very easily mean present to you a heart of wisdom. In other words, we actually learn something in life. We gain something. Well, something to think about. I know in my life, I've spent a lot of time not being, first of all, seeing the beauty of God in all things. And then secondly, not being a good steward, the utility, the stewardship that God entrusted to us as believers over the details of our life. Till next time, friends, God bless you.
Whoa, 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 whoa.